giving Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marine students their first 40 hours of flight instruction. At that time, her students could move on to flying in the airlines, becoming astronauts, while women were only allowed to fly as civilian instructors and charter pilots in piston civilian aircraft. That bugged Angela. So, it bugged her that the students that she taught had opportunities that were unavailable to women. At age 24, she wrote a PhD dissertation named Elements of Organizational Discrimination, the Air Force Response to Women as Military Pilots. The dissertation was presented to Congress, and in time, history was changed. She was offered to go to test pilot school. NASA called regarding involvement with the space shuttle. She then had the offer that she accepted, American Airlines. That she accepted and retired as the most senior female pilot. Angela, among 20 other women, formed the International Society of Women Airline Pilots, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's take a look at Angela's fascinating history.
Hollywood, California was a great place to grow up in the 1950s. And for Angela Masson, it seemed perfectly normal to jump in an airplane and head off on family vacation trips. She and her young siblings soon became co-pilots, and 15-year-old Angela began flying lessons at Cloverfield in Santa Monica. Air racing caught her eye, so she borrowed the family Blanca and promptly entered the Palms to Pines air race with Claire Walters of the famed Claire Walters Flight Academy, where Angela won her first job as a flight instructor and flew more than 1,000 hours in a single year. Although her airplane was overly handicapped for the coast-to-coast derby, she earned the Tail End Charlie Award for finishing last. Undaunted and having packed lightly to minimize her aircraft's weight, Angela attended that evening's formal black tie award ceremony in her only available outfit, a t-shirt and hot pants. Air racing was fun for Angela, and she soon was burning up the engine of the family plane on a regular basis. To solve that problem, her parents bought her the birthday present every 21-year-old girl dreams of, a Blanca Super Viking with a 300 horsepower Lycoming engine certified to run continuously at full power. She became a ground and flight instructor with multi-engine, seaplane, and commercial glider ratings. Ever the student, she earned her BFA, master's, and PhD by age 24 and graduated from the University of Southern California as president of the graduate student body. 1 year later, Angela was hired by American Airlines, becoming the first woman flight engineer and advancing to first officer, captain, and chief pilot. She flew the Boeing 707, 727, 747 jumbo jet, 75, 76, and 777, as well as the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, MD-80, MD-11, and Airbus A300. She became the first woman ever type rated on the 747 and the first woman chief pilot for American Airlines. During her career, Angela acquired a wide assortment of type ratings and world speed records, and continued to sing, paint, and even belly dance. She ran for mayor of Los Angeles, recorded an album, had her own talk show, and in 1989 was blessed with a beautiful daughter. A true aviation pioneer, we proudly welcome Captain Angela Masson to the California Aviation Hall of Fame.
Angela's daughter is going to introduce Angela. Is Athena?
I get to feel important up here. So definitely a lot to live up to. It is a great honor to be presenting a woman who I've looked up to for the entirety of my life. Dr. Masson is not only a pilot and a teacher, but also a mother who raised me to believe that I can be what where I want to be. Unfortunately, I learned quickly at a young age, watching her crawl home from the airport into bed at about 11 a.m. after battling heavy thunderstorms across the international dateline, snarky passengers complaining about being 2 minutes late and their gin and tonic not containing the finest liquor, and a broken up radio signal that prevented you from hearing what the tower control was trying to say to you. I realized very quickly that being a pilot was not for me. So how does one get on this journey and ambition to become not only a pilot, but one of the first few women to fly for the airlines? The past few days, my mother showed me around Los Angeles and took me to her childhood homes. Her first home, located near Griffith Park, had a huge hill, winding and turning, and 90-degree inclines. I'm not joking, like 90 degrees. One false move, and you can end up at the bottom of the valley, it seemed. Yet Mom, reminiscing about her younger years, said that all the neighborhood kids and herself would take their skateboards up to the top of this mountain and ride down at 90 miles per hour. So that was my first indication that at a young age, my mother was trying to reach takeoff speeds. She just lacked the wings. At another one of her childhood homes, she showed me a 6-foot wooden fence. And at the age of 6 or 7, she convinced her younger brother that if they tied banana tree leaves to their arms and flapped really hard while jumping off this 6-foot fence, that they will fly. Well, my grandmother was not too happy to have bare trees, to say the least. However, now my mother had the basic ingredients of flying: takeoff speed and wings. Eventually, the family realized that if they wanted to keep her in one piece and save the family garden, that drastic measures needed to be put into place. So on her 21st birthday, they got her what every 21-year-old needs: an airplane. Finally, she could get herself into the air. Well, from that moment on, I don't think her feet ever touched the ground again. She participated in air races, sometimes dragging her family along with her. Her whole strategy to winning was to not bring any cargo with her. The lighter the plane, the faster it will go. So all she packed was a toothbrush and maybe a change of clothes. During the award ceremonies, while other lady pilots would be dressed in their heavy beaded, glitzy ball gowns, my mother would stroll up in hot leather pants, claiming it took up less space and weighed almost nothing. My mother's big break, though, came when she was an ROTC flight instructor and was flying cargo for the Navy on civilian contract in her twin-engine Bonanza aircraft. All of the male students she once taught as a flight instructor were flying past in A4s and A7s while she was confined to a civilian contract just because she was a woman. Even though living in the same quarters as men, wearing the same uniforms, working the same hours, and in most cases having logged thousands of flying hours, more than many of the men, and even teaching these men to fly, she was barred from flying in the military. You can see where this is going. Of course, that wasn't going to stop this woman. Trust me, she can't be stopped. I've been telling her to slow down and have a cup of tea for many years now. It doesn't work. Please, someone help me. My mother entered into the Aerospace Safety and Systems Analysis PhD program at the University of Southern California and wrote her thesis titled Elements of Organizational Discrimination: The Air Force Response to Women as Military Pilots. Dun, dun, dun. She took it a step further and presented it to Congress. Double dun, dun, dun. After completing her PhD, she was offered 2 jobs never before offered to a female. She could come work at NASA or work for American Airlines. Well, NASA would only offer her mission specialist, so of course they were immediately rejected, because if we've learned anything today, the girl wants to be a pilot. My mother eagerly accepted the position at American Airlines. She went on to receive type ratings on 8 different aircraft, holds the ATP license with commercial glider and seaplane endorsements, as well as flight engineer, ground and flight instructor certificates, and remote pilot. She traveled to every continent on Earth, sometimes several times in the span of a month. Yet she still managed to find time to come home, pick me up from school, and make me dinner. Flying as captain for over 20 years, She was the first female chief pilot for American Airlines. As the most senior female pilot, she retired with over 31 years total service in December 2007. She now dedicates her days to teaching aerospace at Embry-Riddle University and sharing her stories and love of flying to the future generation of pilots. It is a great honor and privilege to introduce my mother, Dr. Angela Masson.
I'd like to say some thank yous, and then I'd like to tell a little story. So, bear with me while I get organized for a second. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Museum of Flying. I was just absolutely dumbstruck when they called me and didn't believe them. But this is proof, I guess, that it's happening, and I can't thank you all enough for including me in this ceremony. Thank you to the board of directors, thank you to the benefactors, including Dallas Price Van Greta, who helped with our tables, and Steve and Ramona and Mike, and thank you to everybody who came out to party with us. And here today are some of my friends that I've known for over 50 years, and some of my friends and family from all the way from St. Augustine, and my compadres from American, and it's like, let me just say thank you to everybody. Really, from my heart, thank you for being here. So, now it's my story time. I've been flying for about 50 years. I figured it out the other day, which weirdly enough is about half the time we've had powered aviation. So that's a little bit of history. But I was offered a job to come teach at St. Augustine High School. And I leapt at the opportunity because it was my chance to give back. And that's, I think, what we all long to do later on is give back. So I eagerly accepted that, and now I have classes 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, and the first 2 years of college. And we go over all the regular aerospace-y stuff that you learn about. We go over aerodynamics and orbital mechanics and flight physiology, mechanics of airplanes' composite materials. We learn all that stuff. But I want to go back, and one of the things we talk about is history, the history of aviation. So back in the early 1900s, it was kind of a fad to get out there and let's do something fun, let's build airplanes. And there were a lot of people hammering around in their yards and stuff, building airplanes, trying to make things fly. So these two gents from Dayton, Ohio, they finally got an airplane hammered together, and the FAI recognized them as the Wright brothers with the first airplane that had sustained and controlled flight. Well, that kind of struck a chord, sustained and controlled flight. So that's something we study in aerospace class. Well, I'm not supposed to say, well, am I? But I'm doing it anyway. So my students, we build these airplanes from scratch, and we study what we're going to do. And one day, we were reviewing everything, and I said, well, this great history of flight, this man, Barry Schiff, has recorded it very well. And as the Wright brothers, even though they patented their airplane, they couldn't protect it very well, and everybody went out and made bigger and further and faster airplanes. And Mike Melville can tell you about the higher and faster, and Dick Rattan can tell you about the longer and further. But my students said to me, have we reached the envelope? Have we reached the envelope of planet Earth where we really can't go any further or faster? And by the way, what's going on with planet Earth? It seems to be kind of muddied up. The water's kind of polluted and the animals are dying off, and what the heck's going on with planet Earth? So I said, kids, okay, here's a mission. Here's your assignment. I'd like you to save humanity, and we're heading outbound. So please design something to save humanity. Solve this problem. And I have 6 classes of students that are divided into 34 groups of 4 each. And within about 2 months, these students have not let us down. They figured out how to build giant space stations with rocket boosters and little satellite space stations going off into the wilderness and landing on Io and having remotely piloted mechanisms and how to recycle water into composite elements so that we can rebreathe it as air. And they just took off. And these are kids. And so here's my paradigm that I'm trying to get to the point of. The paradigm is that aerospace is really the salvation of humanity, because Spaceship Earth is our little airplane, our spaceship that's kind of getting goobered up. I gotta throw this story out about a Petri dish. So you have a Petri dish and it's agar in there, like a Jell-O, and it's got a little sugar in it, and you mix it up and you wipe your finger on the top, and then it makes a bacteria growing in the little Petri dish, and pretty soon the bacteria is growing, and then it gets fuzzy, and then pretty soon it dies and it turns into a gush because it used up all the agar. And that's kind of like our planet. We're like a little Petri dish, and we're using up everything, and we're confined by an atmosphere. But the kids understood this intuitively. And so that's my paradigm, is that we need aero and we need space. And not only do we need it to think about Spaceship Earth as a little Petri dish, but our big salvation is continuing to explore out and beyond the boundary of our Spaceship Earth. And our kids have the capacity and the brains and the willpower and the training to do that, and that's because you have supported them and you've brought them this far. My friends of flying and my flying friends. And that's my story. Thank you.
I'd like to present Angela. I'd like to present Angela, California Aviation.
Sharing the tradition of flying. My friend Gulshan Gilbert from American Airlines just earned her wings day before yesterday, and I'd like to take this opportunity to pass on the tradition and pin on her